Welcome to Darkwatch Stories, where we bring to life the chills, the shadows, and the mysteries that linger in the dark. If you enjoy spine-tingling stories and want to support the journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Now, sit back, dim the lights, and let's step into tonight's story. I've been fixing elevators for over 20 years, long enough to know people never notice them until they break. Then the calls come day or night, begging for rescue from the box that suddenly turned into a trap. They think it's routine work, mechanical, predictable. But inside those dark shafts where one wrong move can kill you, the hum of cables and the whisper of gears sometimes sound a little too alive. You crawl through black shafts where one wrong step could end you, leaning over live power and roaring motors that could tear an arm clean off. You rescue drunks, cheaters, and the panicked, once even a corpse. It's dangerous, but it all makes sense. Machines break. People panic. That's the rule. But last month, that rule cracked. A call came at 10 p.m., routine on the surface. Yet something in the dispatcher's voice felt off. The CP Hotel, old, forgotten, crouched by the I-90, like a ghost waiting to be remembered. Dispatch said only elevator. Stuck doors opening when they shouldn't. Nothing unusual, at least not on paper. I tossed my toolkit in the truck and drove out under a sky the color of cold steel. Past the Daggerland exit the name, whispering rumors I once heard stories about a man named Winters and something with a dog that never left. They said a man named Winters once lived there with his dog and with something that never quite died. Probably nonsense, the kind of story people tell to make old places feel haunted. Still, the CP Hotel wasn't hard to find. 14 stories of brick and rot, a neon sign spitting sparks into the dark. The P was dead, leaving only C Hotel, burning faintly. Inside, mildew and smoke clung to the air as a lonely bulb buzzed above. Behind the counter sat a man who looked older than the hotel itself. His thin, greasy hair clung to his scalp, and the thick lenses of his glasses made his eyes seem to float. He blinked slowly, as if each movement cost effort. Yes, he murmured, voice stretching like old tape. I set my toolbox down the echo hollow in the lobby. Got a call for a repair, I said. But he only stared unblinking. He didn't speak, just lifted a trembling finger and pointed down the hall. The corridor stretched out like a tunnel, dim and endless carpet sagging under my boots with the weight of years. The air smelled of mildew and something older like time itself rotting. At the far end stood the elevator, its metal doors bruised and dull. The wall lamps flickered, casting shadows that bent the wrong way, as if the light itself wanted to hide. I kept walking, the weight of my toolbox dragging against my arm as the hum ahead thickened a low, rhythmic thrum laced with tiny clicks like something chewing metal. Up close, the elevator looked sick. Rust bloomed across the steel seams choked with grease. The brass button plate had turned green with age, the UP arrow pulsing faintly like a dying heartbeat. I set the toolbox down, hesitated a second, then pressed the button. The sound swallowed me whole. The button clicked reluctantly. A sluggish sound like the switch itself resented being touched. Somewhere above the motor, coughed awake cables whispering a thin metallic song through the shaft. The doors twitched open a few inches, slammed shut, then groaned wide with a shudder that rattled the walls. I flinched, heart ticking faster. Inside the cab waited old wood panels peeling at the corners, a hollow box that seemed to breathe in the dark, waiting for me to step in. The cab's wood paneling was cracked, and flaking carpet edges curling like dried skin. 2 fluorescent lights buzzed above, angry as hornets, while the fan grill exhaled a slow, dusty wheeze. I didn't step inside, never do not, before it talks to you. First rule of the job, I crouched low flashlight, sweeping the door sill, listening for the story the machine was about to tell. The track was clogged with grit and hardened gum, the rollers worn flat from decades of work that explained the stutter. I tapped the door close button with my knuckle. The panels groaned and shut reluctant. Door open, same result. I listened. The motor hummed a low, uneasy note through the walls, brake pads squealing like distant screams. I unlocked the service panel. A puff of dust burst out, heavy with the sour metallic scent of old wiring and time. Cloth-wrapped wires sagged like old veins. Insulation brittle and flaking contactors crusted with corrosion. No burns, no blown fuses, just exhaustion, the kind that settles into old machines. I closed the panel and straightened up. "All right," I muttered. "Let's see how you run." I stepped inside. Before I could touch a button, the door slammed shut, metal jaws snapping tight. The cab lurched violently upward, hard enough to make my teeth clack. Something had decided to move first. The needle above the door twitched, hesitated, then began to climb on its own. I hadn't pressed a thing. The motor wailed, dragging the cab upward, cables singing like strained nerves. At least it works, I thought, but the thought felt borrowed, whispered from somewhere else. The car shuddered to a halt. The brake caught weakly, trembling like a breath too shallow. Then, with a groan that echoed through my bones, the doors began to open. Balloons floated lazily into the cab, their strings brushing against my arm like ghostly fingers. Beyond the doorway, a hotel conference room stretched out. Streamers' sagging colors faded, the air stale with sugar and dust. A folding table sat crooked beneath a giant cake, the frosting glossy under the weak lights. Blue letters bled into white spelling. "Happy Birthday, Tommy." The message looked fresh, but everything else around it felt decades dead. A ring of children sat in crooked chairs, their paper hats askew, clothes wrinkled, as if they'd been waiting far too long. One girl tilted her head, eyes glassy. "Sit," she said, and my knees obeyed before my mind did. The chair moaned beneath me. A freckled boy sliced the cake, the knife squealing through hardened frosting, and handed me a plate. I didn't eat. They did. Small bites, first polite and dainty, then larger, faster, until frosting smeared across jaws that opened far too wide. The sound of wet chewing filled the room, thick and rhythmic, broken by giggles that sounded light but felt wrong. A boy plunged both hands into his cake, stuffing it into his mouth until his knuckles scraped bone. His gums peeled back too far, revealing another row of pale, jagged teeth. Across the table, a girl leaned down and licked the frosting straight from her plate, her tongue long, slick, and forked like a snake's. The giggles twisted into shrill cackles, frosting sprang like spit as their eyes rolled white. Faces warped and swelled, cheeks ballooning skin sliding over bone until they looked nothing human. Every head jerked toward me in perfect unison. I ran no thought, just fear. The toolbox slammed against my leg as I stumbled into the cab. My hand pounded the close button again and again, shouting inside my head until at last the doors obeyed. The last thing I saw was the cake sagging and bubbling like something alive. Then the doors sealed, and the cab lunged upward, slamming me against the wall. My toolbox clattered against the rail, echoing like a hollow scream. I gripped the bar chest, heaving, trying to steady the rush of panic. The air was cool again, but sweat still traced down my temples. "What the hell is going on?" I whispered to no one. I'd seen strange things on this job. Drunks snoring on the floor, a junkie treating the cab like a private den, even a dead man once sitting upright as if napping through eternity. But this kid's, a whole room of them sitting in a circle waiting like I was part of the guest list, watching them tear into cake, until their jaws cracked, faces melting into something monstrous that wasn't a malfunction. Machines break, circuits fail. But that was wrong. That wasn't bad wiring or a jammed relay. That was no, I couldn't even finish the thought. I shook my head hard, trying to make sense of it. Elevators don't open onto that. Whatever that place was, a rotting conference room, a dream, a memory, it wasn't real. Couldn't be. I turned to the control panel, every button dead, every light dark. My reflection stared back from the steel plate, pale and wide-eyed like someone I didn't recognize. The motor above groaned, pulling the cab upward with grim determination, as if it knew exactly where it wanted to go. I muttered to myself, voice trembling, "Don't lose it. Don't lose it. Just find the problem, fix it. That's the job." The words felt hollow, routine drilled into panic, but deep down beneath the noise and the hum, I knew the truth. No tool, no reset switch could fix whatever had taken control. The indicator needle jittered, skipping numbers before freezing midway. The brake screamed metal, grinding against metal, and the doors shuddered open. Heat exploded in punching the air from my lungs before I could swear. It came in waves thick, suffocating, alive. The smell followed scorched metal, mixed with something wetter, meatier. It was the scent of a place that burned more than machines, like a butcher's fire, still hungry for what it hadn't finished cooking. The floor beyond wasn't carpet anymore, it was an industrial abyss. Steel beams loomed high above their sides, bleeding rust like old wounds. The concrete beneath my boots shimmered black, slick, with something thick and unspoken. The air pulsed with heat, vibrating through my bones. Along the walls, furnaces gaped open, massive square-mouthed monsters big enough to swallow a car whole. Flames licked their edges hungry and restless, as if they knew fresh fuel had just arrived. The furnace doors hung open, vomiting fire so bright it seared my eyes. Conveyor belts rattled toward them, chains shrieking with every turn. And on those belts, shapes, human shapes, limbs, tangled torsos, stacked like garbage waiting to burn. The belts jerked forward, metal screeching, until the bodies slid into the flames. Then came the screams, not in harmony, but in chaos. Dozens of voices, raw and terrified, each one cut off too soon, swallowed by fire. The screams came in waves, pleading, shrieking, gasping, each one rising only to be smothered by the next. Then I saw them. Figures moving between the belts, tall, crooked things, with arms too long, backs bent like rusted hinges. Sparks hissed beneath their dragging fingers. When a body jammed the line, they stooped, lifted it effortlessly, and threw it into the flames. The sound of burning flesh filled the air. I stood frozen, my mind refusing to move. The heat blistered my skin, but my body refused to move. One of the creatures stopped mid-step, its head twisting slowly toward me with an awful creak. The body it carried hit the floor with a wet thud that echoed through the chamber. Then it began to walk. Another turned. Then another. The furnaces behind them roared louder, flames stretching higher, reaching out like hands, eager to drag me into their burning embrace. I stumbled backward into the cab, the toolbox slamming against my knee. My hand pounded the close button over and over, the plastic going soft under the heat of my palm. The doors dragged shut halfway before something hit them. A long blackened arm slid through the gap, fingers curling around the frame. The steel groaned, trembling under the pressure. The thing leaned in closer, until a sharp crack split the air. The arm snapped backward, and the door slammed shut with finality. The cab rattled violently, as if something outside had slammed into it. The motor screamed, hauling me upward again. The walls shivered, cables groaning like they were ready to snap. I stumbled back, pressing against the panel for balance. The air reeked of scorched metal and burnt flesh, coating my throat with heat. "I gotta get out," I whispered, voice cracking into something thin and desperate. But the elevator kept climbing as if it hadn't heard me. "I gotta get out of here," I screamed, pounding my fist against the rail until my knuckles throbbed. I spun toward the panel, jabbing every button in reach. Lobby close, open. 2, 3, 4, nothing lit, nothing answered. Desperation clawed up my throat. I slammed my thumb into the emergency stop hard enough to dent the plastic. Dead. The motor above groaned relentless, still dragging me upward. I cursed, ripped open the service panel with trembling hands. Dust erupted, revealing brittle wires, tangled like veins. I yanked down a breaker switch, sparks spat, lighting the cramped cab in a flash, but the hum kept steady, mocking me. "Come on," I hissed, flipping another. Then another. Nothing changed. The elevator didn't even pause. My gaze darted upward to the hatch. I could climb out, maybe crawl onto the roof, but if it moved while I was up there, no. That wasn't escape, that was suicide. I grabbed the rail again, sweat sliding from my palms. Every nerve in my body screamed for action, but there was nothing left to do. The cab wasn't mine anymore, it belonged to something else. I have to get out. I whispered my throat, raw tasting smoke that wasn't there. The indicator needle shook, stumbled, then froze. A metallic shriek cut through the air as the brake caught. The doors creaked open. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something that looked almost normal. An exit sign flickered across the hall, its red glow humming faintly like a promise. Beneath it, a plain gray door waited, the little running man symbol pointing down towards safety. Relief hit me so hard it almost hurt. Thank God, I breathed, clutching the toolbox as I stumbled forward. My legs shook, knees buckling with every step, but I didn't care. After everything I'd seen, that door was salvation, simple, solid, and human. I kept moving toward it. The bar gave way with a click, and the door groaned open under my hand. I expected stairs, the echo of concrete, the smell of dust and cold air. But instead, there was nothing. No walls, no steps. Just blackness. Not the kind you see when lights go out, but something thicker, alive, swallowing even the glow behind me. The hallway light stopped at the threshold like it had hit glass. I leaned closer, breath shallow, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. And then I saw them eyes. Thousands of them, tiny red points burning in the dark like scattered embers. At first they looked distant, almost like stars trapped in a midnight sky. But stars don't blink. These did, all at once. A synchronized shimmer that froze the air in my lungs. Then they began to move. Shifting, weaving, gliding closer together. Red pinpricks swelling into shapes that breathed, that hunted, that saw me. The eyes multiplied into pairs rising above my head, dipping low to the floor, weaving through each other like wolves circling prey. Then came the sound. A slow, grinding scrape claws dragging against stone. It crawled up my spine, followed by the wet, uneven rhythm of breath. Dozens of lungs heaving in the dark, each exhale thick and alive. My whole body locked in place. My fingers clung to the crash bar, paralyzed. The red eyes lunged forward, and the dark came alive. That broke me. The crash bar slipped from my grasp as instinct took over. I yanked my hand back, slammed the door shut, and ran toolbox smacking against my thigh, breath tearing through my chest. The hallway seemed to stretch forever, but the elevator waited, doors wide open like a mouth ready to swallow me whole. I dove inside, hitting the close button with both fists, praying the doors would move faster than the things behind me. Through the narrowing crack, I caught one last glimpse, the stairwell door bulging outward, hinges straining, red eyes glowing through the split, like the darkness itself was trying to force its way in. Then the doors sealed with a metallic thud. The cab lurched so hard it nearly threw me off my feet. The motor above screamed furious, dragging me upward again. The walls trembled, bolts rattling loose, as if the whole elevator were shaking itself to pieces. My lungs felt half their size, every breath a shallow gasp. I clung to the rail, pressing my forehead against the cool wood to stop the spinning. My whole body trembled. I can't do this," I whispered, voice splintering. "I gotta get out. I have to get out." The control panel glared back, dead and empty. I hit the buttons again and again until my knuckles burned, but nothing lit, nothing listened, nothing cared. I tore open the service panel again, desperation boiling over. My hands shook as I flipped switches, slammed breakers, anything to stop the madness. Sparks spat, biting my fingers, the sting sharp and real, but above me the motor only growled louder like it was laughing. The indicator needle danced, skipping numbers in a frantic blur. Overhead, the fan wheezed, gave one dying hiccup, and spat dust into my face. Then came the sound, faint at first. A single metallic ring, then another. Another ring followed, then another, until the sound was everywhere, shrill, metallic, pouring through the cracks around the doors. It filled the cab like smoke, vibrating in my teeth, clawing at my ears. The noise grew unbearable, a chorus of old phones screaming for attention. The cab jolted to a stop, shaking like it had hit something unseen. Then, with a long metallic groan, the doors began to open and the ringing roared into the light. By the time the doors slid open, the ringing had swallowed everything. The hallway stretched into infinity, both walls lined with rotary phones, ancient dust-caked cords, stiff and coiled. Every few feet, another phone, every receiver shaking violently as it screamed for attention. I stepped out, toolbox hanging limp in my hand, ears buzzing, heartbeat syncing with the endless metallic chorus that filled the air. The nearest phone screamed louder than the rest, a sharp, piercing shrill that dug straight into my skull. Against every instinct, I picked up the receiver. Dogs. A whole pack, snarling, barking claws scraping against wood. The sound hit me hard, too real. I could smell them, the musk of fur and heat. I could feel it 10 years old again, trapped in a neighbor's yard. Hot breath snapping at my skin. Terror freezing me where I stood. "Not real," I muttered, slamming the receiver down. Another phone rang louder, closer, and before I could stop myself, my hand was already lifting it. Voices poured through, whispers layered over whispers, hundreds of them tangled like static. Going up, don't step out. 13th, watch the doors. The words collided, breaking apart into noise. I dropped the phone, letting it swing wildly on its cord until it smacked the wall with a hollow, echoing thud. Another phone rang sharp and commanding. I grabbed it, desperate for something human. Police department came, a man's voice calm, steady, professional. Relief flooded me so suddenly, I almost cried. "Oh, thank God," I gasped. "Listen, I'm at the CP hotel. The elevator's gone crazy. I don't know what floor I'm on." "Calm down, sir," he said smoothly. "We'll send someone right away. Just need your information first." Anything, I breathed, clutching the receiver tighter. "Yeah, anything. Just get me out of here." "Date of birth?" the voice asked, calm as ever. "March 9th, 1984, I answered automatically. Silence. Then a low chuckle. 1984, huh? Very funny, sir." His tone shifted, still amused but wrong. 20 years went by just like that. My stomach dropped. "What are you?" The line clicked. Static hissed in my ear, cold and empty. I pulled the receiver away, slowly staring at it, as if it might still be breathing. The cord was cracked and stiff, the mouthpiece buried under a thick coat of dust, as if no one had touched it in decades. The receiver slipped from my fingers and swung lifelessly. I didn't bother to hang it up. Then another phone rang. I froze. The voice that came through was one I hadn't heard in years, but could never forget. Hey. My stomach twisted. It was him. The bully. The kid who'd made my childhood a living hell. He was the one who'd shoved me out a second-floor window while I screamed, leaving me with a broken leg and that awful grin burned into my memory. The same one who died years later in a car crash. You saw it, didn't you? His voice hissed through the receiver, slick and cold. The furnace. That's where you'll end up. My grip went slick with sweat. You're not leaving. You'll stay here with me forever. His laughter slithered closer. I'm coming to visit. I tore the receiver from my ear and almost hurled it away. It swung wildly on its cord, slamming against the wall with a hollow crack. Then the others joined in. Every phone in the hallway began screaming, their bells clanging in chaotic unison. The sound grew unbearable, metal crashing cords writhing like angry snakes. My skull buzzed with it. Instinct took over. I thought of the elevator, the only place left to run or to hide. But then a thought slithered in, quiet and tempting. Maybe I didn't have to go back. The ringing was unbearable, yes, but there were no flames here, no eyeless things crawling from the dark. Maybe if I stayed, it would stop. Maybe. A sudden shudder cut the thought short. The phone in front of me began to convulse. Its casing split down the center, the rotary dial twisting, warping outward like metal flesh being forced to breathe. With a nauseating crack, the entire unit tore free from the wall and crashed to the floor. Then it began to grow. Metal twisted, stretching grotesquely, the cords bulging into thick-veined cables that pulsed like muscle. The receiver split in two, gaping like a monstrous jaw lined with jagged, uneven teeth where the mouthpiece had been. In seconds, it towered above me. A grotesque living telephone, its dripping maw clacking shut and snapping open with bone-rattling force. Each slam echoed like a scream. Chomp. The sound thundered down the hallway, a deafening crack of metal and fury. Sparks burst from its gnashing jaws as the creature lurched forward, cords writhing beneath it like roots. Chomp. Another bite, each one shaking the air itself. I screamed, stumbling backward, the toolbox slipping from my grip and crashing to the floor. My eyes darted frantically, searching for a door, a vent, any way out. Nothing. Only walls. Only the monster closing in. The hallway was alive, with ringing phones twisting on their cords, shrieking in madness. The giant jaw lunged, teeth snapping shut just inches from my face, the air splitting with a force. I didn't think, I just ran. My boots thundered against the floor, the toolbox slamming into my leg with every stride. Ahead, the elevator doors stood open, waiting. Too open, too still, as if it had known all along that I'd come crawling back. I hurled myself into the cab, slamming the close button over and over until my hand went numb. The doors shuddered as the giant telephone smashed into them. Chomp, the sound echoing through the walls like thunder. Then silence. The car trembled once, twice. The motor screamed above, dragging me upward again. The air grew heavy, colder. The cab groaned, metal twisting, as if the cables were grinding through bone. My stomach lurched, knees buckled, and then slam. The elevator stopped dead. The brakes screeched like tearing metal, and the doors creaked open. A wave of cold air poured in, not the artificial chill of air conditioning, but the raw, biting cold of winter. It stabbed through my skin, scraped my lungs with each breath. I stumbled back, shivering, then leaned forward again, disbelief rooting me in place. Snow. It was snowing inside the elevator shaft, flakes drifting lazily down from the ceiling, like the world had forgotten its rules. Snowflakes drifted gently through the yellow glow of the elevator light before dissolving into an endless white beyond. The ground stretched outward, uneven, rolling hills of snow, with no walls, no edges, no end. just an open expanse beneath a vast gray ceiling that didn't belong indoors. The air was sharp, and still the silence so deep it pressed on my ears. My breath came out in clouds curling softly, before fading into the cold, infinite haze. I stepped forward, boots sinking into soft powder with a muffled crunch. The elevator hummed quietly behind me, doors gaping open as if daring me to retreat, to crawl back into its waiting jaws. I turned once. My footprints were already fading, swallowed by the steady fall of snow. The whiteness wanted to erase me, to pretend I'd never been. Then a faint breeze brushed my sleeve, cold and real. Impossible. There was no wind in a place like this, but it was real. The wind, cold and damp, carrying with it a scent I hadn't known in years, wet iron sweat, and that sour tang of fear. Then came the voice. "Come out." My chest locked tight. My heartbeat pounded so hard I felt it in my teeth. That voice, I knew it instantly. The bully. Not just any kid, but him, the one who'd hunted me through every school hallway and nightmare of my childhood. He was the one who'd cornered me behind the dumpsters, grinding my face into the dirt until I choked laughing while I cried. The same one who'd shoved me out a second-story window, watching my legs snap like a twig, grinning at the sound. He was dead. I knew that. A car crash had taken him years ago. I'd seen the memorial flowers tied to a telephone pole, the ribbons fluttering like ghosts in the wind. But his voice was alive. But his voice was alive here, cruel, teasing the same tone he used when I hid, and he prowled closer, savoring the hunt. I dropped low into the snow, pressing myself against the drift, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might shake the ground. My breath fogged the air, each exhale too loud, too real. I tried to quiet it, slow it down, but the silence betrayed me. Crunch, footsteps, getting closer. He emerged from the haze, taller, now older, but there was no mistaking him. The same grin, sharp and cruel, carved across a face hardened by time. His shoulders were broad, his grip steady on the axe, swinging lazily at his side. The blade was dull, chipped but heavy enough to cleave me in two. Each step he took left deep prints in the snow, slow and confident. Then came the sound I dreaded most, his whistle. "Where are you?" he called the whistle, twisting through the snow, off-key, lazy, cruelly familiar. It was the same tune he'd used to hunt me after school, back when I was small enough to cram into lockers and stupid enough to think a teacher's car could hide me. That sound hadn't changed. It slid through the cold air like a snake. My jaw clenched tight, pain shooting up into my ears, but I didn't move. I couldn't. He dragged the axe behind him, its edge carving a jagged scar through the snow. His boots sank deep, leaving dark hollows that slowly filled as more flakes fell. Then he stopped, head tilted, listening. "Where are you?" he whispered, almost tender. I froze, every muscle locked, until my knees ached. Crawling forward inch by inch, I searched the endless white eyes, darting desperate. There had to be a way out, but there wasn't. No doors, no walls, no exits, no stairwells, only the endless white stretching in every direction and him pacing through it with his axe and that damned whistle. My pulse hammered in my ears. Then I saw it, half buried under the snow, about 30 feet ahead. A square iron hatch, rusted and crooked, its handle bent upward like a finger beckoning me forward. My only way out. Maybe. I moved faster, boots crunching in the snow, breath loud and ragged in my ears. "Got you." The words sliced through me. I spun around. He was closer than I'd thought, axe already swinging, snow exploding from the blade. I lunged, slipping, clawing for the hatch handle. My glove stuck to the frozen iron as I yanked. The hinges screamed, metal grinding against metal. I dove headfirst into the darkness just as the axe came crashing down. Sparks exploded across the snow as the axe struck the hatch rim metal, screaming in protest. Then nothing. I was gone. The chute swallowed me whole, dragging me down into darkness. I slid fast, shoulders slamming into cold, dented steel sparks, bursting where the toolbox scraped ahead of me. The walls were slick frost. Grease, I couldn't tell. My arms flailed uselessly as the tunnel twisted, coiling into impossible angles, folding in on itself like the world was collapsing just to drag me deeper. My stomach twisted violently, the fall never ending. A silent scream caught in my throat as snow clung to my clothes, melting into icy rivers down my spine. My breath tore past me, stolen by the dark. Then whump, I hit something soft. The air burst from my lungs. I was buried in mountains of fabric-yellowed sheets, rough wool blankets, uniforms, so old their patches had flaked away. The smell of dust and age wrapped around me like a shroud. I coughed and choked, clawing my way upright as gray dust billowed around me like smoke. My flashlight trembled in my shaking hand, its beam slicing through the haze. The basement stretched wide and low, pipes dripping rust from the ceiling. Every corner was packed with slumping piles of linen leaning against each other like sleeping bodies. I spun in circles, the beam dancing across the shadows. My heart pounded so hard it hurt to breathe. I braced for something, a faceless worker to lunge or red eyes to spark open in the dark. But nothing came. No motion, no sound, except the soft sigh of fabric settling and my ragged breathing. The silence pressed on me heavier than the dark itself. I stood, forcing my legs to move. My boots crunched through fabric that felt brittle, breaking like old paper. Each step left a print that slowly vanished as the linen slumped closed again. It felt like the linen wanted to erase me, to bury me alive beneath its weight. I pushed forward the toolbox, knocking against my leg, eyes scanning for any way out. Then I saw it, a door, half buried beneath a mountain of blankets, its faint outline glinting in the dust. I clawed my way through, coughing, until my hand found the knob, tarnished brass, icy to the touch, but solid. I turned the knob, and the latch clicked softly. A flood of golden light poured through the crack, washing over me like warmth after endless cold. I stepped through and froze. The hallway stretched before me, perfectly familiar. Same carpet, same faded wallpaper. Chandeliers hummed overhead, one bulb flickering weakly. The smell of mildew hit me again, stronger, now sharper, but somehow almost comforting. I was back. I stumbled forward, half in a daze, the carpet, soft beneath my wet boots. Each step left dark, damp marks that faded too quickly, as if the hallway itself didn't want to remember me. My arm dragged along the wall, smearing dust across the faded wallpaper. At the end of the hall, the desk waited unchanged. The concierge sat there, his greasy comb-over and thick glasses exactly as before. He looked up, calm lips curling into the faintest smile. "Well," he said softly, voice calm like nothing was wrong. My throat tightened, words dying before they could form. Bile rose instead. I bent over the counter, vomiting, until my vision swam, every breath a shudder. The concierge simply nodded, slow and understanding, as if he'd seen this all before. "I understand," he murmured. I wiped my mouth on my sleeve, trembling. No words left. I turned, stumbling toward the front doors, and stepped into the cold night air. Outside, my van waited beneath the flickering sign, CP Hotel, the P, sputtering like it was gasping its last breath. I climbed in the seat, cold against my back. Peeling off my uniform shirt, I tossed it onto the passenger seat. It slumped there like a corpse. My hands gripped the wheel tight. For a long moment, I just stared at the empty road, wondering if home still existed. For a moment, I thought about calling dispatch, pretending I could file this as just another malfunction. write a report, forget. But then my mind drifted elsewhere to Amish country. A place with no elevators, no buzzing motors, no glowing buttons that move on their own. Just wood and wind, ladders and light. A world where the only thing that rises is the sun, and you climb to haylofts, not into metal boxes that breathe at night. A small, broken laugh escaped me. "I'm moving to Amish country," I muttered. Half a joke, half a prayer. My fingers tightened around the key, the engine coughing to life beneath the silence. Headlights cut through the darkness ahead. I didn't look back at the hotel. I just drove into the night and away from everything that followed me. Thank you for listening to Darkwatch Stories. If this story gave you chills, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so we can keep bringing you more. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware of what might be watching in the dark.